They say weddings are supposed to be the happiest day of a woman's life. But for me, my wedding day became the day I uncovered the ugliest truth about the people who were supposed to love me most. And before I tell you what I exposed in front of everyone, let me take you back to the very beginning. Before we continue, please subscribe to Revenge with John. And tell me in the comments, have you ever felt like the invisible one in your family? My name is Elise, and for as long as I can remember, I was never really wanted. In fact, the story of my life started with rejection. My father didn't want a second child, especially not a daughter. He used to say we couldn't afford another mouth to feed, that the bills were already too heavy. When I was born, he looked at me, sighed, and within months he walked out of our lives. He left my mother, my brother Mark, and me behind, carrying nothing but his selfish excuse. I can't handle the expenses anymore. But in my mother's eyes, it wasn't his fault. No. To her, it was mine. She never said it outright when I was little, but I felt it in the way she looked at me, cold, resentful, as if my very existence had ruined her life. And she never missed a chance to remind me, even with silence. Mark, my older brother, became her golden child. He could do no wrong. Every little achievement, a good grade, a soccer game, a smile, was celebrated. Me, I was a shadow. Invisible except when I became the target of criticism. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" she would say as she pushed my report card across the table. "Don't speak like that, Elise, you're embarrassing me," she would hiss whenever we had company. I grew up with this imbalance carved into my skin. Love was rationed, and I was always at the bottom of the list. Till I tried. I tried to win her approval. I studied hard. I behaved. I never caused trouble. But nothing worked. To her, I was the reminder of the husband who had walked away. And Mark, the son she clung to, became everything I wasn't allowed to be. Adored, supported, cherished. By the time I left for university, I carried more baggage than the suitcases in my hands. But for the first time, I felt a flicker of freedom. Away from their house, their constant criticisms, their cold stares. I could finally breathe. And that's when I met him. He wasn't just another face in a crowded campus. He noticed me. Me, the girl who had spent her whole life invisible. With him, I wasn't the unwanted daughter or the shadow of Mark. I was just Elise. And for the first time, I allowed myself to believe in love. Little did I know years later, that same love would become tangled with the darkest betrayal imaginable. When I first fell in love, I thought maybe life was finally giving me something back. After years of being the forgotten daughter, the shadow in my own home, suddenly someone looked at me as if I was the only person in the room. His smile made me believe I wasn't invisible, his words wrapped around the cracks in my heart, and for the first time, I dared to imagine a future that wasn't painted in loneliness. So I did something bold. I brought him home. I still remember the nervous flutter in my chest as we stepped through the front door of my mother's house. My hand was locked in his, sweaty and trembling, and I whispered to him before we entered, "Please just try to ignore them." He kissed my knuckles gently and nodded, but he had no idea what awaited inside. Mark was sprawled on the couch as if the entire living room existed only for him. He barely glanced at us before smirking. And my mother, her eyes landed on my boyfriend like a blade sliding across skin. There was no warmth, no curiosity, just judgment, sharp and immediate. "So," she said, dragging out the word as she crossed her arms, "this is the man who thinks he can take care of you?" I froze. My boyfriend extended his hand politely. "It's an honor to meet you, ma'am." She let her eyes travel slowly, cruelly, from his shoes up to his face, then ignored his hand completely. Instead, she turned to Mark. Well, at least she didn't come home alone this time. Mark laughed. That cold, brotherly laugh I had heard my entire life. The kind that said, "You'll never measure up." We sat down to dinner, but every bite was poisoned by her words. "Elise, chew with your mouth closed. Elise, stop fidgeting, you look nervous. Elise, don't interrupt him, it's rude." It didn't matter that I wasn't doing any of those things. She invented flaws just to point them out. And then came the dagger. As my boyfriend tried to tell a story about how we met, my mother leaned back, smirking. Well, I suppose someone had to notice her eventually. Poor thing, invisible for so long. The air left my lungs. My cheeks burned so hot I thought my skin might crack. I wanted to scream, to shout, "How dare you?" But I couldn't. The little girl in me, the one who had grown up being silenced, still lived inside my chest. She clamped my throat shut. I glanced at him. His jaw was tight, his knuckles white against the fork. Under the table he squeezed my knee gently, steadying me, protecting me in silence. But silence cut just as deep as words. When we finally left, I collapsed in the car, tears running down my face. I hated myself for crying, hated that she still had that power over me. He pulled me close, whispering, "You don't need her approval. You are enough." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to drown in his words and forget the way my mother's laughter had carved me open. But I couldn't. Deep inside, I knew, no matter how much love I found outside, my family would never let me live without trying to ruin me. And as it turned out, I was right. Because years later, when I was preparing to marry this man, they wouldn't just try to humiliate me. They would drag my entire world into a nightmare I never saw coming. For years, I told myself I wouldn't let my family decide my happiness. And when he finally asked me to marry him, trembling, smiling, his eyes filled with hope, I said yes without hesitation. It was the first time in my life I felt chosen. But we started planning quietly. I didn't tell my family, not because I had forgotten them, but because I knew better. They had never celebrated my joys before, so why would they start now? I wanted a wedding filled with laughter and warmth, not with my mother's barbed tongue and my brother's smirk poisoning every moment. But secrets rarely stay buried. It was Mark who found out first. He saw a picture online. A friend had shared something about the bridal dress shopping. Within hours, my phone was buzzing with his name. Then my mother's. When I didn't answer, they called again. And again. Finally, I picked up. "So, Elise," my mother's voice hissed through the line, "you were planning to get married without telling your family?" I closed my eyes, my stomach turning. "Yes. That's exactly what I was doing." "You ungrateful girl," she snapped. "After everything I've done for you. What have you ever done for me?" The words escaped before I could stop them, trembling but sharp. "You've spent my whole life reminding me I wasn't good enough. Why would I invite you to the one day I want to feel happy?" There was silence. Then Mark's voice, heavy with mockery. "She thinks she's too good for us now, Mom. Let her have her little princess wedding. We'll see how long it lasts." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but inside me something hardened. This was my life. My choice. And I wouldn't let them destroy it. Or so I thought. The day of my wedding arrived. My dress fit like a dream, my makeup flawless, and for once I felt beautiful. The room buzzed with the soft chatter of friends and the smell of fresh flowers. I should have been calm, joyful. But my heart kept pounding as if warning me that something was about to shatter. And then it did. A bridesmaid rushed into the makeup room, her eyes wide. "Elise, your mom and brother are here." The brush slipped from my fingers. My reflection blurred as rage burned in my eyes. "No," I whispered. "I told them not to come." But of course telling them wasn't enough. They had forced their way in just like always. I tried to gather myself, but curiosity pulled me from the chair. I slipped out of the room, moving down the hall toward the voices I dreaded most. That's when I heard it. My mother's voice, low, venomous, like a snake. "If you think you can marry Elise without consequences, you're wrong. I know what you did years ago. Don't forget who holds your little secret. You either keep me close or I'll destroy you." My blood froze. I peeked around the corner and saw her, my mother, standing inches from my fiancé, her lips curled into a cruel smile. He looked pale, cornered, his fists clenched at his sides. "What do you want from me?" he muttered. "I want respect," she hissed. "And if that means exposing the truth to Elise on her wedding day, I will. Unless you do exactly as I say." I staggered back, my veil trembling in my hands. My chest tightened. 1,000 questions screamed inside me, but only one thought thundered louder than the rest. What secret was she holding over him? I had always imagined betrayal as something you saw coming. A cold look, a suspicious whisper, a phone left face down on a table. But standing in the hallway of my own wedding venue, veil trembling in my hands, I learned that the deepest betrayals don't arrive with warning. They hit you like a knife between the ribs. My mother's voice was sharp, venom dripping from every syllable. "You don't want me opening my mouth in there, do you?" she hissed. My fiancé's voice, strained and tight, barely carried. "Please, not today. Not here." My breath caught. My body pressed against the wall, straining to hear. "Oh, don't act so noble now," she spat. "You remember the nights at our house, don't you? Elise was asleep, innocent as always, and you were sitting in my kitchen lingering a little too long. Do I really need to remind you what happened between us? The world tilted. My knees nearly gave way. No, this couldn't be real. I clutched the fabric of my dress until my knuckles ached. My fiancé, the man I thought was my safe harbor, stood frozen, shame carved into his face. He didn't deny it. He didn't scream, "You're lying." He just lowered his head, silent, guilty. My mother leaned closer, her voice low and triumphant. "You were young, foolish, but so was I. Still, a mistake that delicious doesn't vanish so easily. Elise may think you're perfect, but I know the truth. And if you don't want her to know it too, you'll do exactly as I say." He swallowed hard, his voice breaking. "Please, don't tell her. She doesn't deserve that pain." I bit my lip until I tasted blood. My heart, my lungs, everything inside me screamed, I don't deserve this pain either. She smirked. "Then you'll play along, smile at me, treat me with respect. If you think you're marrying Elise without me, you're mistaken. You're mine to control now, just as she always was." That was the moment I realized it. My mother hadn't come to my wedding to celebrate me. She had come to tighten her chains around both of us. I staggered back from the wall, tears blurring my vision, every step heavier than the last. I wanted to confront them, to scream, to tear the entire hall down with my fury. But another part of me, colder, sharper, whispered, "Not yet. Not like this." So I straightened my veil, wiped my cheeks, and walked back into the bridal room. When my bridesmaids asked if I was okay, I smiled. A perfect, painted smile. Because the time for tears was over. I had waited my whole life for a day of joy, but instead my wedding would become my reckoning. I would let them sit there, smug and confident, waiting for me to say, "I do." And then, before every guest, before God, before the world, I would burn their lies to ashes. The music swelled, soft and elegant, as I stepped into the hall. Every head turned. For a moment, I almost let myself believe this was what I had always dreamed of. The aisle lined with flowers, the faces of friends smiling, my dress brushing against the floor like a whisper of hope. But inside I was burning. I saw them immediately. My mother sitting proudly in the front row as if she owned the place. Her chin tilted high, eyes gleaming with superiority. Mark was beside her, smirking, whispering to someone like the wedding was a show meant for their amusement. And then I looked at him, my fiancé, the man I had trusted. His face was pale, his smile forced, his eyes avoiding mine. My stomach twisted, but I held my head high. I walked the aisle not as a bride floating toward happiness, but as a woman marching toward justice. The ceremony began. The officiant's words blurred, drifting around me like meaningless noise. I could feel my heartbeat pounding in my ears, louder and louder, until only one moment mattered. "Do you, Elise, take this man to be your husband?" The world fell silent. All eyes were on me. I opened my mouth. Yes. But I stopped. The word lingered, half-born, then died on my lips. I let the silence stretch until it became unbearable. People shifted in their seats. My bridesmaids exchanged nervous glances. I turned slowly, deliberately, to look at my mother. And then at him. And I spoke. "You both thought I wouldn't find out. You both thought I'd stay the quiet, invisible girl I've always been. But today isn't about silence. Today is about truth." The room rippled with confusion. My fiancé's face drained of color. My mother stiffened, her smile faltering. "Years ago," I continued, my voice shaking at first, then hardening, "when he was supposed to love me, when I was supposed to trust my family, you betrayed me. You sat in my house and made me feel like nothing, while behind my back, you two were crossing lines no mother and no fiancé should ever cross." Gasps broke through the hall. Someone whispered, "What did she just say?" I pointed at my mother, my voice rising. "The woman who gave me life stole my love." Then I turned to him. "And the man who swore he loved me betrayed me." My words sliced through the air like glass shattering. My mother shot to her feet. "She's lying," she shrieked, her face red, her voice cracking. "She's making this up." But her panic gave her away. Her voice was too desperate, her eyes darting. People murmured, shaking their heads. And him, my fiancé, didn't even try to deny it. His lips parted, but no words came. His hands shook at his sides. The silence from him was louder than any confession. The crowd erupted. Guests gasped, muttered, some shouted. Shame. How could you? Disgusting. The whispers grew into waves of outrage. The air thickened with judgment, disgust, betrayal. I felt tears sting my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not now. I stood taller, straighter, stronger. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the invisible daughter. I was the storm. I will not marry a liar, I declared, my voice steady. And I will no longer be chained to a mother who has only ever taken joy in my pain. Gasps turned into stunned silence. And then slowly applause, hesitant at first, then stronger. People weren't applauding my misery. They were applauding my courage. I turned, lifted my dress, and walked down the aisle again. But this time I wasn't the broken girl they expected to see. I was free. Behind me, my mother was being dragged down by her own shame, my fiancé standing pale and humiliated. They had both lost. And I, though heartbroken, had won. Because I had finally taken my voice back. The night I walked out of my wedding, people expected me to crumble. They thought I would run into a corner, sobbing, shattered, begging for someone to piece me back together. But I didn't. I walked out into the cold air, lifted my veil from my face, and breathed for the first time in years. My chest ached, my eyes stung, but I wasn't broken. I was awake. In the days that followed, the whispers spread faster than wildfire. Everyone in town knew. Guests who had been at the wedding retold the story with wide eyes and lowered voices. My mother and my ex-fiancé were the talk of every cafe, every family dinner. Their names carried disgust now, not respect. Me. People pitied me at first, but pity didn't last. They began to admire me. She stood up for herself, I heard once in passing. She didn't let them silence her. Those words stitched into me, thread by thread, mending places I thought would never heal. I focused on rebuilding. I threw myself into work, finding strength in every small success. My friends rallied around me. The world that once felt like a cage suddenly widened. I realized that I had spent my life waiting for love from people who would never give it. Now I was free to choose where I gave mine. But freedom came with its own strange weight. My mother didn't stop calling. She left voicemails. Angry, desperate, pleading. "How dare you humiliate me like that?" she spat in one. Another time, "You'll regret this, Elise. Blood is blood. You can't erase me." I didn't answer. For once, silence was my weapon. Mark, though, was different. At first he defended her, blaming me, sneering like always. But as the dust settled, he began to see. He heard the same whispers I did. He saw the disgust in people's eyes when they mentioned our mother. And slowly his loyalty began to crack. One evening, weeks after the wedding, he called me. His voice was hesitant, stripped of its usual arrogance. "Elise, I didn't know about what she did with him." I said nothing. Let him squirm. I thought she was protecting us, protecting me. But no. I can't even look at her. She ruined everything. For the first time I heard something in his voice I had never heard before. Shame. "She's all alone now," he whispered. "And I don't think I can stay by her side anymore." I closed my eyes. Part of me wanted to laugh, part of me wanted to scream. But mostly I felt a strange, calm relief. The golden boy had finally seen the cracks in his crown. My mother had lost me long ago. And now she was losing him too. That was when I understood something I never had before. True revenge isn't just about exposing someone. It's about breaking their chains, the ones they wrapped around your throat for years. And I was finally free. Time has a way of rearranging the pieces we thought would never move. Months passed. Then years. My life, once tangled in shame and heartbreak, began to bloom in ways I never expected. I poured myself into work, into friendships that lifted me instead of breaking me, into small joys that once seemed impossible. The ache of betrayal didn't vanish overnight, but it dulled, transforming from an open wound into a scar that reminded me I had survived. My mother, on the other hand, did not heal. Word about her spread far beyond our town. The scandal was unforgettable. A mother exposed at her daughter's wedding for betraying her in the worst way imaginable. People avoided her. Old friends stopped calling. Even the neighbors who once gossiped with her shut their doors when she passed by. And Mark, her golden boy, walked away. He couldn't stand the shadow of her disgrace, and eventually he cut ties. The son she adored, the one she always chose over me, left her to sit alone in the ruins she had created. One afternoon I saw her. I was walking through the park, sunlight slipping between the trees, when I noticed a frail figure sitting on a bench. Her once proud posture was gone. Her shoulders curled inward, her eyes darted nervously at strangers who passed by but never stopped to greet her. It was my mother. For a moment I froze. Memories surged, her harsh words, the sting of her coldness, the laughter when she humiliated me. Then the wedding day, her secret, her shame. She looked up. Our eyes met. There was no fire in her gaze anymore, no sharpness. Just emptiness. Loneliness. A woman trapped in the cage she had built with her own hands. I felt something stir inside me, but it wasn't anger. It wasn't even hatred. It was nothing. And in that nothing I found peace. I walked past her without a word, my head held high, the weight of her shadow finally lifted. For the first time in my life she had no power over me. Because revenge hadn't just been exposing her. It was this moment, when I realized I no longer needed her love, her approval, or even her presence. I was free. So I'll ask you watching this now. If you uncovered a betrayal like mine, would you have stayed silent to keep the peace? Or would you have stood in front of everyone like I did and let the truth burn them down? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Revenge with John for more stories where justice finally finds its way home.